Hello. Told it wrong, Torbjörn. Sorry about that. Hi. Welcome. Everyone knows Josh. Josh is here to help me today. He's always a good fall guy because he's young and fit and strong, and when I bend his wrists, he hates it. We've been working on wrist locks lately. Boy, does he hate it. And we've been doing this great series, which was taught to me by my buddy Paul Cale. We're going 1, 2, then we're going 3, 4, 5. We're working these wrist locks. I mean, it's just what it's done is it's reawakened my love for wrist locks, particularly when you understand those fundamental wrist locks. You see how so much of Aikido is built around the beauty and effectiveness of those wrist locks. Rochelle, good to see you. Frederick, Buddy from Indonesia, Frederick from Sweden, Rochelle from Canada, Torbjörn from Norway, Daniel from good old Maitland, Paddy, Paddy, good to see you, man. Say hello to Paddy.
Oh, hi.
Herman, Rob, good. Rod Webinar. He's young enough to cover from wrist. Nah, mate, you never cover from wrist damage, do you? No. Okay, so today we're talking about opposites, and I wrote a bunch of things down, but the fact of the matter is opposites exist. It's a dual world. It's a phenomenal world, and the word phenomenal basically means a duality. So it's happy, sad, mad, glad, hot, cold, summer, winter, bright, dark, all that. So we can't get away from opposites. In training, the degree to which you focus on them and think about them can make a huge difference to your training. Just simple stuff when you're trying to pull someone off their base or to get control of the lock or something. If I just pull, I can only achieve so much. But if I push and pull at the same time, well, then I can achieve an awful lot. Well, yeah, it's paradox maybe, Tigray. I'm not too sure whether it's a paradox because there's no confusion about it. I would guess that a paradox would kind of suggest some degree of confusion or conflict. But a paradox, I just looked it up quickly, there's a contradiction or a contradictory statement and so on. But the fact of the matter is, I think it works. Mike. I think it was Harry. I think it's not a paradox. In fact, Shannon, good to see you, man. Nice to see your name pop up all the way from Jersey. My buddy, Shannon from Jersey, where his mother's got a coffee shop in Toyden 20 Toyd. I love the coffee at Toyden 20 Toyd. Oi, Chris, good to see you. Okay, so it's not really a paradox because it's actually a perfectly balanced duality. So there is no paradox. And I've written a bunch of things down. And one of the reasons, the main reason I wanted to look at this today is because we talk about doing karate for life. And like I said last time, in the Dojo Kun, the last line, Shogai no Shugyo, karate no michi sushi, kyokushin no michi o mattou suru koto. Shogai no Shugyo, that's the last line of the Dojo Kun, says, all our lives. Yet so many people stop training. Well, why do they stop training? Obviously, they're not satisfied with what's happening. They feel like they're better to spend their time elsewhere. But if you see the beauty of training and for what it is, then there is no question that you'll do it for life. And you lose enthusiasm when you lose the balance of the learning. And that's usually the ego steps in the way and, hard training gets in the way and all that sort of stuff. If you're not constantly growing and expanding in your training, obviously you'll give it away. What's Gaza? If you're not constantly growing and growing and expanding your training, you will give it away. Okay, so you have to grow in width, grow in depth. Some things need to be taken deeper and deeper and deeper. They're the things that you specialize in. Some things need to be taken broader and broader. They're the things that you need to be aware of. So I'll never get in a kickboxing ring in my life. Come on in. Yeah, come on in. Yeah. I'll never get in a kickboxing ring in my life, not at my age. But you need to be conscious of the strengths and weaknesses of any sport, any art. Generally, the obsession with tournaments, many characters involved. Yeah, and there you go. I mean, tournaments, there's a duality right there. Tournaments and non-tournaments. Tournaments are the worst thing that ever happened and the best thing that ever happened. So you fight in tournaments, boy, oh boy, it makes you strong. And you go to dojos where they fight tournament fighting, they're very strong. But often what will happen is, like kickboxers at the end of their career, they get a little bit confused about what they're going to do next. Okay, so you've got to find that balance that gives you an ongoing sense of enthusiastic improvement. And you get that through those endorphins, man. You know what it's like the first time you go to training and you see someone. I remember the first time I went to training and saw Frank Everett, and all I wanted to do was grow up and be big and strong like him. I mean, he's only 5'2" or 5'4", but I was even smaller than him, you know. So that little rush of wanting what he had, and then in training, every time I go to training, and sometimes I roll with Josh, and Josh is young and strong, so he presents that challenge of youth, and it's exciting to me when Josh does something funky that really makes me think about what I'm doing, you know, and that's that constant sense of progress. And a lot of people talk about the beginner's mind. A lot of people talk about, you know, being humble, but as soon as they're challenged by something outside their comfort zone, they're not humble anymore. They either do one of two things. They get angry and try to deal with it in the only way that they can, which usually doesn't get anywhere, or they sneak away and pretend that doesn't exist at all, you know. And this is really important to address. So the best opposite, talking about opposites, the best opposite is having high thinking, high, clear, pure, high thinking and skills, but a very humble, bowed head, and the whole idea of being in possession of the beginner's mind. So the white belt and the black belt, be the biggest black belt, strongest black belt, but have the attitude of the lowest white belt all the time. And like I said last time, if you have that attitude, you can walk into any gym, any style, anywhere in the world, and they will open their doors to you. And you might get tested, and you should, but you're comfortable with that. You get tested, you get taken outside your comfort zone. But if you're humble, they will appreciate it. Hard is easy, easy is hard. You know, the Tao Te Ching says the way that looks easy is hard. The way that's hard is easy. It's like training. You know, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. Hard training leads to easy fighting. And easy training leads to hard fighting. And that's the thing. Shane, my buddy Shane, just dropped in. He was going to come and help, but he's doing a talk tonight to a local club about mental toughness and so on. And, you know, when they say fighting is 90% of the brain, I wrote this in my book, in the Budo Blueprint. When they say fighting is 90% of the brain, what that means is you've done all the hard work in the gym. So that allows your mind to be free and unfettered in the ring. If I've done all my, Frankie Everett used to say, I've done more rounds, more skipping, more bag work, more mitt work, more speed work, more sprints, more push-ups, more sit-ups than anyone. And definitely more than the bloke across the other side of the ring. So the only way he can beat me is if he gets lucky. So all I have to do is just make sure that I keep that luck away from him. So when they say fighting's 90% of the brain, what they mean is you've done all the hard physical work in the training, so that when you get on the mat, your mind is free and clear. There's so much said for hard training, medium training, soft training. And you always say, we need to adapt aging bodies. Yes. That's it. There you go. Old age, young age, the young, vigorous energy of youth where you just smash the body. You got to smash it. You train twice a day, 3 times a day, because by the time tomorrow comes around, you recover. If I trained 3 times today, I promise I wouldn't be able to train for a week. You know, but like Rod says, there's hard training, easy training. I mean, I've already trained this morning. My training this morning was enough so that today's session and tomorrow's sessions can be as good as they can be. You have to adapt. Chrissy, if someone deserved to be jaded as fighters in karate, it would be Kazumi. He evolved his karate to the perfection of kata. There you go. Kazumi now, who was probably arguably one of the best, greatest tournament fighters in Kyokushin history, now his whole training has done the big circle, and now he really focuses a lot on kata and understanding kata. Well, I mean, there you go. Perfect, imperfect. The goal is always perfection. Like Funakoshi said, the old man, the art of karate lies in the perfection of the character of the participant. So your goal is always to seek perfection. But that's always like strive for the stars, but it doesn't mean you stop there. And kata perfection is more a mindset than a skill. And like Salsai said, there's only ever one way to do a technique, but if the way you do it knocks them out, well, then that's the right way. Well, in many respects, you could argue that if you're able to dominate an opponent perfectly with a single blow, well, then that's perfection in its own way. Yeah, Midori Kenji, look at him. I don't know what he's doing now, but boy, oh boy, look at him. He was like 165 centimeters, 71 kilograms. He won the World Open Kyokushin Championships. I mean, work that out. That's just awesome. Okay, weak, strong. The fight within, the fight without. What's going on around you is a reflection of what's going on within you. It's like the old saying that the traveler comes to the gatekeeper and says, "What are the people in the village like?" He says, "What were they like in the last village?" He said, "Well, actually, they were actually quite mean. They weren't very helpful. They were selfish. They were rude." He says, "Well, actually, you'll probably find they're very similar to that here." Then another traveler comes along to the same village. Says, "What are the people like in here?" He says, "Well, what were they like in the last village?" He says, "Well, actually, they were really nice, really helpful, kind, considerate. Boy, oh boy, I couldn't have asked for more." And he said, "Well, actually, you'll probably find they're exactly the same here." So what happens around you is a reflection of what's going on the inside. Some techniques take strength, some take softness. We talk about that. Sometimes I need to dominate, particularly when I'm grappling. So, for example, Josh lies down. Watch what I mean. This is an example. So Josh is here, right? I need to get control of this arm. See this arm here? So what I'm going to do is use my head, and I'm pinning that as hard as I can. My arm underneath, my head here, and I'm going to pin that and push it up. See, now from there, this has to be strong. And the only reason I got it that easy was because Josh is compliant. Compliance, non-compliance. Okay, if Josh is fighting it to not want to let me get that, now I've really got to use strength, boom, to pull it up. Okay, hope I didn't tear my stitches. But the point is, and then look at this on the other side. If I'm here and Josh is trying to get his hand near my head, all I do is I go soft, like sticky hands. He tries to get his arm on my head. As soon as I tense up, boom, he gets straight around it. See that? I'm here, he's fighting it. Boom. Okay, really work hard to get your arm on my head. Do it, get your arm on my head. Get your arm on my head. Do what you can. Boom. I do it. I want you to get shoulder pressure on my jaw. Go away. Go. What are you going so soft for? You're being too nice. Okay, when I tense up, it's easy for him to get around. So I tense up, and you try to get your arm on my head. Boom, it just goes around my head. See that? If I go soft, now do it. Okay, so by being soft, I'm pliant, and it's really hard for him to get around. As soon as I tense up and harden, do you mind turning those 4 lights on and those 3 on? I just forgot to turn the lights on. So softness is really valuable there. Many of these guys, Midori, Matsui, the generation, I don't see them doing Aikido, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, wrestling. Yeah, I think you're right. And there's another example. When you go outside your own system, like Salsai did. Salsai studied Chinese martial arts. He studied Judo, Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. He did anything he could, even boxing. I don't know if you know, but I mentioned it in my book. But here's something that not many people realize, that Salsai was the junior light for his age, the age junior welterweight boxing champion of Seoul, Korea, in his day. Well, that's interesting. Not many people knew that. Good on you, Us. Good to see you, Ken Hicks, all the way from Florida. Hope you're safe over there. Us Rud, Rajit, all the way from Hiroshima, and Paul from Germany. Good morning, wie geht's? Okay, so we got this constant stream, and like Rodney said, there's time for hard training, time for soft training. You know, a perfect example for that is flexibility work. It has to be soft and long, but intense, hard, alactic stamina work needs to be short and sharp. Okay, I used to get the students to do downhill sprints, would you believe? Just a very slight 3 or 4 degrees. We'd do 80-meter sprints and we'd stop for 3 minutes at the end of the round, at the end of the sprint, so you get your energy back. So there's time for super intense, time for super easy training. Push, pull, positives, negatives, top, bottom, on the top, twisting them, flipping them over too. Hip in, hip out, separation, connection. Sometimes I want to be connected. Sometimes I want to be separated as much as possible. Well, that's a good point. I've never heard Jesse say that. I don't know. I've never met him, but he makes some good points. So I would have thought that he wouldn't say something like that. But it's a fair call that for a lot of Kyokushin people, I can tell you now, you put gloves on, tell them to get in the ring, they're not going to be out. I don't know whether he said that. I'd be interested to know more, Tigray. But you know what? There is no doubt a lot of Kyokushin people are head shy. They're glove shy. It doesn't mean they can't. When he says we do not punch in the face because we're incapable out of fear, I think anyone can punch in the face. It doesn't take much to be punch in the face, but to be able to deal with it and get in the ring and face the impact, well, we don't have the head movement, we don't have the eye and the coordination, and that takes some work. So you got to get in, you got to put gloves on, put a head guard on if you need to. I just don't like head punches because it scrambles your brain. We were talking about CTE on Friday. It's also trained in Gogen Yamaguchi's gym, but I'm a little bit, Gogen Yamaguchi. It was really, I would say it was more, Gogen Yamaguchi was the head of the gym, but I don't think they ever really trained together much. They only trained together a couple of times. Masayama's Goju was with Sone Chu more than anything, and Sone Chu was the senpai to Yamaguchi Gogen. But anyway. Sometimes you give and accelerate, sometimes you take and drive. So, for example, I've got to be a little careful here. I've got stitches in my back from a surgery last week, and they're not out yet. So let's look at this, for example, where I'm in this position and someone rushes in on me. All I do is, rather than rush out of the way, I simply drop and turn. So I'm here, we're back here, we're sparring, pull, bang, bang, boom. If he comes in on me, whoa, rather than trying to beat the force, or meet the force head on, what I do is I simply, as he comes in, step and turn. And then I can finish here and knee right if I need to. Okay, so sometimes you give and take. Another example of that might be, for example, we're on the ground, and that position that we had there just before, this is one of the key positions that karate guys need to get comfortable with. If you're not, not just Gary. Gary didn't do that many fights in the ring, and it actually didn't really like it that much. But yeah, look, I don't know how many fights Jesse's had in the ring. I love his stuff. He really is a strong promoter of karate. So for him to say anything against Kyokushin like that kind of surprises me. But you've only got to look at guys like pretty well all the Dutch kickboxers whose origins are in Kyokushin. Peter Schmidt, Kyokushin Dutch kickboxer, Kyokushin fighter who beat the world champion to take the world title in his 8th fight. And then you have guys like George St. Pierre, ex-Kyokushin, Michael Thompson, Nick Pettis, all these guys, even Nathan Corbett from the Gold Coast. His origin was karate as well, you see. So, there's plenty of good guys out of Kyokushin. I don't think that holds water. You can't generalize. That's like, saying everyone from there is like that or everyone from there is like that. Not everyone from Kyokushin trains the same way. It's an individual thing. Yeah, thanks. If you could do that, just send the link. Put it here so everyone can see if you've got it handy. So here's an example. I love this as an example. So some of these positions as Kyokushin fighters, we need to be comfortable with. And I'll tell you, I know that is true because from time to time I've been invited. Daniel Langworthy will know. Daniel Langworthy's attended a number of my seminars. Chrissy Dunn will know because I've worked with him. Josh knows. Anyone that I've worked with, Goju often thought I was hard to solve, is actually pointing to understand the relationship of opposites. Yes. Well, when I started to think about opposites, of course, the first thing I thought about was the Go and the Jew. When Okinawans were forced to name, what do they do? Most try to capture the idea. There you go. Yeah, and it's just a name. So, one of the first things I do if I ever get invited to Kyokushin seminars, to do a seminar for a karate group or a Kyokushin group, is I'll just show them various positions which can be dangerous and which they can find themselves in at the hands of someone who has been training for 3 months. So it doesn't matter if you've been training karate for 3 years, 15 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. If you do not know how to deal with fundamental shapes, I call them shapes, fundamental positions, then all those 50 years of training or 30 or 20 or whatever is completely irrelevant because you just don't have the fundamental sense of space that you need. It's like I once did a seminar. There's a boxer in Australia named Barry Michael. Hi, Barry. Barry's a former boxing world champion, and he and I did a seminar once. He did the hands and the boxing side of it, and I was invited to do the kicks and so on. And in that seminar, I'm actually sparring with boxers, Australian national level, international level boxers, and just I remember one guy who was a real champion, we're sparring away, and I just did this slight little inside tap on the thigh kick, which most Kyokushin guys would not even hiccup to. They wouldn't even notice it. And he just looked at me going, bugger that. He says, I don't want anything to do with that. That's dirty fighting. I can't, So it's the opposite as well. Don't forget that every style has its strengths and weaknesses. Like Rico Ciparelli says, all forms are fluent. Okay, so you could say anything you want about Kyokushin and their lack of emphasis on head punches, but I would perhaps suggest that Kyokushin leg kicks are as good as, if not better than, most people, and definitely their head kicks, their knockout head kicks are better than, I would argue, any other karate style. Well, there you go, Rod. Who did that to you? That was good. So there's an example. So we're talking about some of these positions that we have. You need to familiarize. That's just I've got a patch there where I had a biopsy taken, a big chunk of skin, and that's just water. Don't worry, that's just water. I just had a shower before. So some of these positions we need to be comfortable with. Okay? So I'll get, lie down. And you go, well, yeah, but it's not realistic to say to someone to lie down. Well, the reason we do that is because stand up. Okay? Shape up, bang. So now he's lying down. So it just saved me the hassle of having to do that, And if you think that's not going to happen, that's exactly what will happen. If you're standing up like this and this guy wants to take you down, he's just going to go, whoa, bang, bang. Take you down, just like that. Okay? So this is a knee ride. You need to be careful, be aware of that. And this is a side control. You need to be aware of that, how to deal with it. This is a north-south position. That's just instantly debilitating. Okay? There are various positions. So I want to show you something here. Jump up. I'll get Josh to put me in side control, because one of the things that you need to learn as a karate fighter is comfort, discomfort. You familiar with that, Josh?
Yes.
What's comfort, discomfort?
Discomfort and discomfort. Depending on the position, you can be in a very comfortable position where you're controlling them, and then discomfort is when you're under them and they're just putting the pressure on you.
There you go. Now, what that means is you have to be patient and familiar with the sense of discomfort. Most karate fighters, when they first roll, have never experienced that. So the first thing they do is panic, that claustrophobic panic. They're, oh, no, you know, and it happens to everybody. So if I was to put pressure on Josh, like right now, see, again, space, no space, pressure, softness, they're all good. They're all good. There you go, perfectly explained, Josh. They're all good balances and opposites. So, for example, Josh is lying down. I may put pressure on him, and I'll try to put a bit of pressure on Josh and see how he reacts. Pretty uncomfortable. You can see it in his head. Say the alphabet, Josh.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
So that's pressure. There's another way to do side control, and that is to be softer. So now when I'm on Josh, I'm like this. And what I do is, we've talked about it in the 7 stages of Kumite. Crosshairs, micro adjustments, not just in stand-up, but also on the ground. So now I have no pressure. Say the alphabet.
A, B, C.
Perfect.
D.
It's easy as. And now all I do is I respond to his movement. So he tries to get out. See, all I'm doing is I'm softly controlling from the top. Okay, now, on the bottom, there's a couple of things that you may consider. What's one thing you may consider to get away from underneath, Josh?
Elbow on the side. So
Why?
it just stops from them to control you more. So it stops their movement. So you can
It minimizes their movement. What was the word you just said?
get the to create space.
Space. Okay, one way to think about it is create space. All right, but sometimes when you try to create space, the other guy knows exactly what you're doing. So his goal is to stop you from creating space. Okay, so that is the concept of soft control with micro adjustments. So Josh lies down. Watch what happens this time. Just come back here a bit. Watch what happens this time when I don't respond. First thing he's done is created space. Keep going. His knee's in now. Look, he's just created a whole bunch of space. Okay? So one of the best things you can do, come closer, watch him and stop when I say stop. So go. Stop. What's the first thing he did? We call this oi boys. What does oi boys stand for?
Off your back on your side.
Off your back on your side. If you ever played rugby, you know you don't want to be under a ruck on your back. You get off your side. It's the same thing. So So the first thing he does is create space by getting off his back. Then he continues creating space by moving his hips. You can tell his hips are moving because look at my arm on his hips. Now watch. See, my arm is being moved because he's moving his hips away. Okay, so he's constantly creating space. So now I'll go underneath. Just be careful, just because of my focus. And Josh is on me. Okay. Now, as I create space, Josh doesn't respond. See how easy it is to create space? And if I really don't want to, I just go boom, here, get up, and I'm gone. It's that easy if you know what you're doing. But watch this time, when I try to create space, Josh isn't so kind. he does the micro adjustments, it's much harder for me to create space, okay? So sometimes the key is not to create space. Sometimes the key is to create connection. So they're the opposites. So watch what happens now on this side. So I'm going to try and create space. Josh doesn't let me. So in my head, I go, all right, well, his movement is becoming predictable because every time I try to create space, he shuts it down. So then watch what I do. I go from, trying to create space to stealing the space away from him. And then I'm going to do another principle, which is push-pull. Okay, and I'm going to do another principle, which is shut down the void, create the void. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is seek space, shut down the space. Second thing I'm going to do is push, pull. Third thing I'm going to do, what did I say the third thing was?
Great.
The void. I'm going to create a void and then shut the void down. Okay, so here we are. Josh is killing me here. The pressure, there's no space. Okay, I've got to try and create space. I can't. I'm trying to get in, I can't. Boom, he opens my arm up again. Okay, that's the first thing. Tried to create space, but I couldn't. So now I'm going to shut the space down and create connection. Watch what I do. So instead of trying to create space, now what I'm doing is I'm creating connection. You see what I did? I went closer to him. Rather than trying to get away, I went closer to him. The next thing I'm going to do is push, pull. Okay, because each thing elicits a certain response. So I've gone from no space, connection, my body is as close to his as possible, and then I'm going to push, and then pull. And it becomes a simple matter of using those opposites to create the effect you want. Now I've gone from being under to being on top. Now you can control to a point on the bottom, but that's usually control with a set of rules and a referee, I have to say. What's how good is I was doing a class as a newly introduced discipline at dojo. I was exhausted having to deal with someone on top of me. Yep. That's right. Well, I'll tell you something interesting. When I used to train over in LA with the Machado brothers, hello from Norway, Artemist. You have to give us your name so we know what to call you. What's your opinion about what happens when you grapple in a non-compliant street fight when there is no such thing as a tap out? Where do you go from there? Well, that's the beauty of it, you see. This is my argument against people who say, well, we don't fight, our fighting art is deadly, so that's why we don't fight tournaments. You go, dude, if it's deadly, it can also be not deadly. You know, if you can kill someone, you can also choose not to kill them. Well, on the street, first of all, we call it the bitumen mat, all right? So things, Hegan, yeah, that was Hegan. Jean-Jacques wasn't there so much. It was mainly Carlos, before Carlos moved to Texas, Tigray. He was still living in LA at the time. So Carlos, Hegan, John. And Jean-Jacques would drop in every so often. When you're on cement, it's a different thing. Okay, so even there's something as simple as a shoulder pressure. Okay, so he lies down and he does BJJ. He's got this organized. He's got this wired, man. He's cool. Okay, here he is. He's under control. He knows what to do. There's no one can hold him under side control in the dojo. And then some sneaky son of a gun like me comes up and goes, it just drives my shoulder into his head 3 or 4 times, and his head's going bigger, 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 bigger on the cement of the footpath. Okay? So you need to realize that there's training in the dojo, training for sport, and training for the street, and there's a different thing. And on the street, you never want to be on the bottom. Okay? In fact, on the street, I don't want to be here either too, because Josh's sister might come running in with boom and kick me in the head, and not even really mean she's just trying to help a brother. You know, so it's a different world out there. BJJ is great, wrestling's great, karate's great, they're all great. Everything's great. But it has to be the ones that do well in a real street fight are the ones who have been there in a street fight. Love the sound of bigger, bogger, bogger, bigger. That's what you're laughing at.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, I just used to hold his head and go bigger, bogger, bogger, bigger, bogger, bigger, like that. Yeah, but that's what happens, you know, on the street when you've got that cement. There are certain techniques which are 100% perfectly comfortable and easy to do in the dojo, which are deadly. Never use a technique you're not prepared to do time for. That's the difference between the mat and the pavement. Well, there you go. And Mike has written a book called Retribution, which is a little bit about his life and his times in the street too. And you get an idea that there's a big difference between the two. Well, there you go. The only thing to say is break the opponent's thumb. Good on you, Rob. Rob's been training since I was a 12-year-old kid, as long as I can remember anyway. And he's in his 70s now. There you go. So that's a perfect example of what you can do in terms of push, pull to save yourself. You know, for example, another thing that you may do is this. And we do it on our knees simply because it cuts down on the danger of impact from hitting the mat hard from a standing position. So that's why. So yeah, redemption. That's what I said, isn't it? Retribution. I call it. Yeah. You know, I actually wrote a book once called Retribution. That's why it was a novel. But anyway, yeah, redemption. There you go. Mike's book called Redemption. Sorry about that, Mike. I'm not a very good book agent today. Okay. So the reason we do things on the mat is because it saves us the impact of doing them from 5 foot in the air. Okay. So here we are. We push him. He pushes me. He pushes me. We push each other. And this is obviously a very, very raw example. So we push. All I'm going to do now is change angles. So rather than receive the push with force, I'm going to receive the push with a turn. So we push, and all I do is turn. And it just falls over. You see? So that's a perfect example of the opposites there as well. So when we're rolling, we're coming around. Well, all I'm doing is, I teach the kids to do this. See, our knees are facing each other. Now our knees are at 90 degrees. So this is what I tell the kids to do. We're in, boom. They can go around the head or under the arm. Doesn't matter. I turn an angle, and I call this the body replacement theory. It's something that I came up with back in the 80s. Because if you try to throw anyone or put anyone or take anyone down, it's much simpler if you try to put them where you were or where you are. So right now I'm here. I want to put Josh right here where I am. If I try to just resist. If I try to put him, resist, don't let me do it. If I try to put him there, or if I try to put him there, it's never going to work. But if I try to put him where I am, resist, he just falls over. Because I turn the circle and put him where I am. So I go from square to 90, I pull, push. Then I can come into this position here. Another way to do that is sometimes he gets the underhook on me. He's got the underhook here. I'm trying to get back in, but I can't. Okay? So all I do now is I just keep that turn going. And I end up here, back in control position. Let's do it from the other side this time. So he gets the underhook again. Well, where's my dominant head? My dominant head is here, looking at his spine. He has the underhook. He has dominant position with this underhook. All I'm going to do is turn that 90-degree angle and keep the turn, and I end up in this position here. There's things I can do here. I can take his arm, put it under there, punch his lights out. He blocks with that arm. I take that arm bar it, or we call this position the Queen of Sheba, because the Queen of Sheba is just like this. So all I do is, I've got this arm trapped. This It's just a natural thing. If you want that arm, you just hit him in his head. Or if you want the arm, you choke him. You have a saying in grappling: if you want the arm, attack the neck. If you want the neck, attack the arm. So I want his arm. He's hiding his arm. He may be punching me or something. Bang here. Look, he'll defend it straight away, and I'll go straight into an arm bar. Or he'll defend it, and I'll put it behind my head. We call this the Queen of Sheba. I'm just lying here eating my grapes. Well, every now and then I'll smack him in the hand. Come on, Josh. And it's really hard for him to get out because I've got the two arms control. And if you're not familiar with this as a stand-up fighter, what are you going to do? There's not a lot you can do if you get in this position. You can say you're going to do this, say you're going to do that. I've been in situations where a guy said, what he can do is unbeatable. I said, well, I'm old and grey, but I reckon I might know what to do. And he said, well, what would you do? I said, well, you do it and we'll see. I did it. And later on he was saying, yeah, I could have, would have. And I said, no. If you could have, you would have. You didn't, so you couldn't. Okay, so here's this. But if I want, I try to get that hand down, but he bends his arm, he doesn't want it, so I put it under this leg. But now, I just move my bang, you see shoulder, you're going to tap out there. But if you don't want to tap out, that was the question before, what do you do on the street? Well, you have a degree of control. You have a degree of control. It's up to you what you do. I don't have to break his arm, okay? I can say to him, just be here like this and go, dude, this is no good for anyone. Or you get to call the police, reach in your pocket, pull your phone out, say, I've got this crazy guy, Josh, he's the young punk from next door who's been going around the neighbourhood beating up little girls. And come and get him, okay? So that's the beauty of being in control. When you're in control, you make the decisions and the choices, and that allows you to be able to do what is necessary. Redemption, that's it. Redirection of force. Yeah, that's what it is. You just redirection of force. Yes, I have been in that crucifix. And the gold one guy, Pete DeBean, who's from Victoria, he was one of the first black belts, BJJ black belts in Australia. Probably, if not the first, at least the second or the third. But anyway, Pete DeBean taught me a golden rule. He says, if you araldite your elbows to your body, you'll save yourself 90% of the problems you could ever face in grappling. So I've been in that situation, and all you can really do there, Tigray, is work to reconnect your elbows. So watch, Josh has me in that crucifix now, okay? You've got to, first of all, keep your head moving because he's going to be punching your lights out. But every time he punches, he needs space. You see, he can't punch. He could do this all day, but he's not going to really hurt you much. It's when he rears back to throw a punch, that's your opportunity. And my goal is not to get out immediately. My goal is incremental escape. Okay? So, so he goes from Kessa. He catches my arm, boom, between his legs, pulls him, so that arm's caught. Let's turn around this way. Oh, the other side doesn't matter. So he starts off in Kessa. This is the flow that we teach him. Good Kessa control. He already has control of my elbow. This is the first position you need to learn about. If you're not familiar with Kessa, it'll kill you psychologically. You will cry. It's that simple. You will black out from fear of claustrophobia if you're not used to a Kessa. Okay? So the first golden rule is, in a Kessa, I need to get my elbow. If I have my elbow out, then I can get out of a Kessa really easily. Okay? So he has my elbow and he slides my hand down and controls it between his legs. Boom. So he has this arm caught. Now I've got this one. Okay? Yes, he's going to capture that one now, and there he goes. See, he's got his hand on his head, and as long as his head essentially stays connected to his arm, that he has good control. Now, all I can do here is look for opportunities and space. So the first thing I want, and I need to be a little careful because I've got these stitches in my back and I don't want to tear them. But every time he goes to punch me, boom, I need to bury my head suddenly. Okay, then he rears up and punches again, and I get my arm out if I can. Okay, And if he's good, he'll pull this elbow, flatten me back down again, and recapture my arm. Okay, and then his balance is good. He'll start to punch, and every time he punches, I have to turn around. Every time he punches, I have to move my head. Boom. Then I come in, and then again, I'll try and get that elbow out. Okay, and if I can get in this position where I have my elbow on the ground and this one here, that's when I go from trying to create space to stealing the space. So now, once again, I get closer to him. See, I'm pushing off this leg, getting under him. He fights back, and as he fights back, I switch and come the other way. Then I go to Kessa, then I capture his arm, and I don't let him get out. I just do that every now and then. So the trick is to punch him when he doesn't expect it. Got you with that one. Okay. So, Tigray, that's my fundamental solution. I once refereed an MMA fight. One of Australia's top fighters fought one of Japan's good fighters, and the Japanese guy held the Aussie in that position basically for 5 rounds. It was very, very eye-opening to me, and I watched the Aussie guy, and he did get out of it a number of times, and I learned a lot from that, because what he was doing is, to avoid being smashed to pieces, he kept moving his head, and then when the opportunity would arrive, he ripped the elbow to his side, and that's the one excuse you can, one escape you can use from the crucifix. But I mean, oh yeah, look, Paddy, Coach Travers, did he show you the escape or did he show you the crucifix? Either or, doesn't matter. But Travers and I have trained together. Travers is leagues above me, but he's very good, and you should have him teaching at your dojo all the time, Paddy. Yeah, he showed you the crucifix. Good. So this whole concept of the opposites is very, very powerful, and we see it in fundamental karate too. What happens is, everyone from Soulside down says that you have to practice Kihon, good solid basics in Kihon. Okay, well, that's the formal side of karate, because that helps to get your neurology right. You know, it's teaching you all to fire off all the parts of the body at the right time, in the right order. Okay, so later on, when you're going freestyle and doing full contact, you have everything moving in the correct way. And you can see people in full contact tournaments who haven't done enough basic training. It comes out in the wash, you know. So there's a balance too. The formality of Kihon and the freedom and freestyle of the Jiu Kumite. See, Kihon and Jiu. Jiu literally means Jiu from Jiu Kumite literally means free. You know, when, for example, a professional sportsman, like a professional baseball player or something, is a free agent, they'll call him Jiu like that. So Jiu means freedom, and it's the opposite to the Kihon. Okay, then you have the circles and the straight lines. Sometimes the best thing you can do is have a straight line. Let me show you that. That is probably one of the best things and one of the simplest things that I ever teach Kyokushin guys to deal with challenges on the ground, particularly the challenge of side control pressure. Okay, in that you have a center line. Okay, and at some stage their weight is perfectly centered on you. And if you keep moving and creating space, you're going to elicit certain responses. And what you're looking for is that arm to come across your face so that you can see the tricep. Once you see the tricep, then you have a certain type of straight arm defense. I've got this gym shirt on, this Kyokushin gym shirt, and oh, look at the sweat. It looks horrible when you're not really training hard, but when you train hard, the whole thing turns sweaty. So it's kind of like that. But anyway, my apologies for that. You have the straight arm push defense, and then as he fights to come back, you actually bend your arms and then continue, because what we're looking for to create space on the ground is a connection between what and what?
Space.
What am I trying to connect to create space underneath side control?
Yeah.
The elbow and
Like
your knee.
Yeah.
Your knee. He's looking for the elbow and knee connection. He said it before. So if I can get to this point where my elbow and knee are connected, remember I talked about this. Yeah. You were thinking of up here, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. Yeah.
If I can create this connection, I can create space. So watch what I mean. He's underneath me here. I'll let him come right in. Okay. I'm trying to get my elbow in, but I can't because he's shutting it down. So I create space there, and then I bring my knee and elbow together. Just move away, Josh. See the position I'm in? My elbow and knee are connected. He comes back on top. So I'm in this position. Then all I do is I extend my hip. And sometimes you can get that arm bar. Sometimes I can switch all the way over to here. And this is another locked arm bar here, like this. There's lots of things you can do, okay? But sometimes they won't let you do that. I'm trying to get this space, and I can't, okay? He's shutting down my space. So what I do is I'll create a little bit of space here, and I'll be patient. I've got one hand that side of his shoulder, the other hand that side, so I'm stopping him from getting good pressure. And what I'm waiting for is this arm. Okay, and I'm waiting for it. I can have my eyes closed, I'll feel it. And as soon as I feel it goes past my center line, I continue with the push. Okay, let's do it again from a different angle. Come over here. So watch. I'm trying to get this. Give us a space. I'm trying to get this. But I can't because he brings his knee up to block my hip. And he brings his hip up to block my elbow. So I can't do it. So what I do is, to relieve the pressure on my jaw, I simply wait here. That's all I do. And then I'll start to create space by moving my hip. He brings his knee back in, and then I'm looking for this opportunity to push the back of the tricep. And it's bang! As soon as I see it, look, straight arm. We call this in the dojo, we call this Archimedes over Newton. Newton is muscular strength, Archimedes is bone structure. Okay, so I push. Now he's not, if he does nothing, I just sit up and push him away. But if he fights back, he doesn't want it. Watch what I do. I let the arm bend, and then I come to the inside of his arm, and I push there, and look at all the space. And so bringing my knee in now becomes a piece of cake. I can either continue here with this arm bar, or kick him in the head as I pendulum up and get away from the situation. So you see, that's an example of going straight arm, bend arm, straight arm, like that. So, opposites occur, and we all know opposites occur because we all have happy, sad, glad, mad times, as Benny the Jet says. But in training, if you become conscious of it, if you consciously work on the principles of duality, then it changes everything for you. Yeah, if you hesitate, you're lost. He who hesitates is lost, as the saying goes. That's what we were talking about before. When you do the training, your mind is free to play. If you haven't done the training, you're actually having to think about what you've got to do. And if they're a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, your brain can't keep up with what they're doing. Okay? So by having drilled the drill, that tricep push comes really easily to me because I'm so drilled that I don't even have to think about it. I'll feel their elbow at a certain point and I'll pull it off just because I'm so used to it. But if I hadn't drilled it, I'd have to still be consciously thinking about it. You know that hierarchy? I forget what it is. It's unconscious incompetence, then conscious incompetence, then conscious competence, then unconscious competence. So you want to be really good at it without having to use your head. And this is what happens. This is why drilling is so important over time. You start with 100% compliance and you build up to non-compliance. And you allow your brain and body to keep up, so there's always space to think about it. But if you haven't done the training, you got zero chance. It's that simple. If you haven't trained to deal with, I was looking for that. If you haven't trained to deal with the situations when they arise, well, when they do arise, it's too late. It's like someone who's, I remember years ago, a friend of mine was going into a full contact tournament. It wasn't a Kyokushin tournament, it was another style. And I liked the guy, and we were just happened to be in the gym at the time. This is at the University of Queensland Karate Club. And I said, he said he's training for full contact. I said, what are the rules? He said, well, anything goes. I said, you're allowed leg kicks. And he said, yeah. And so I said, well, I'll do a soft, easy leg kick. You show me what you do. And his response to the leg kick was to reach down and block it with his arm. Well, what do you do? I mean, the tournament's in 3 days' time. You're not going to be able to develop a natural response to that in 3 days. Well, there you go. That's what Harry said. You know, so I just said, yeah, good luck. But the point is, if you haven't trained, how you fight, how you train is how you react. Okay, so if you haven't done the training, you're not going to react right. What do you think about he who has a taste of performer techniques that come in mind, keeping the mindset of opportunity? Well, you mean thinking to yourself, I should have done that. Well, that's what a good training partner will do. We do it all the time in training, right? Something will happen, and we'll pause, and I'll say,
yeah, what do you do if they get you into this certain?
Yeah, what did you do to gift them that, for example? Okay, what did you do? Because generally speaking, if you've done something wrong, the error happened 3 or 4 moves earlier on. Okay, so having that, I should have done that, rather than saying I should have done that, you say to them, what should I have done, or what did you do, or what did I do wrong to give you that? And then you work on it. You know, it's like, let's go to side control. I'm on top, and lie down, side control. I'm on top, and I'm here. We call this the VW. We call it VW. It's like a VW logo. That's for you, pal. Here, this is the VW. And all I do is I wait. We call this Elvis Pussy's hair. I'm just sitting here waiting. Okay, and then I wait, and then at some stage when he tries to get away, as I part my hair, he brings his arm in front, and boom, I just take the armbar. It's that simple. I don't even have to do anything. This arm's ready, the arm comes around. That's all I did. I mean, how easy is that? Okay, so after that, Josh says, you're getting that armbar on me. What did I do? And I say, well, the first thing you're doing is you bring your arm in front of my face. And he'll say, yeah, but I can't have it here all day. I've got to do something. And I'll go, well, let's think about a hip movement and get the elbow on the ground, on your hip, before you start to bring it in front of my face. So now he hips in towards me to suck his elbow towards his body. Boom, see that? Now his elbow's down here. Okay, now he can sneak his arm along here, and even it doesn't go around my arm anymore. So now he's achieved his goal without giving me the opportunity to counter with a horrible armbar. Okay, and that armbar I take straight out of Pinan 2, the last movement of Pinan 2. Okay, is the oldest street fighting trick in the world. Kick him in the Christmas, and when their hands drop, punch him in the face. I go like this, yep, bang, he drops his hands, boom, punch him in the face. Okay, well, Pinan 2 finishes off 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the 1, 2 is the block against the kick and the block against the punch as it comes. Boom. No, kick me in the nut, in the Christmas, and punch me in the head. Boom, bang. That's what I'm doing. That's Pinan 2. Bang, bang. And then in Pinan 2, I step up and block. So he kicks me in the groin, bang, boom. I step up. Look what I do. I step through now with the upper block, but a block is a lock, as a blow is a throw. So I turn that block into a lock. So as the punch comes, boom, I step forward, turn that block into a lock. Turn the circle and take it to the ground. Well, that lock here that I've just done, watch again. I'll do it on the other side because it'll be easier to show you. So I'm here, no other hand, other leg. Boom, bang, look. I'll come here. And the reason I did that was I wanted to show you, just keep your leg there. I wanted to show you where we end up. Exactly the same position as we did from here when he brought his hand in front of my face. Okay, so that's a Bonkai move straight out of the last movement of Pinan 2. But Josh, I get his arm 3 or 4 times and he goes, dude, that's not fair. What am I doing wrong? So that's the answer. Now remember, we asked those magic questions. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What am I going to do about it? Okay, so I'm here. I get his arm, I get his arm, I get his arm. Finally, he goes, what am I doing wrong? And I'm going, well, you're a dill because you're bringing your arm in front of my face too easy. So he brings his arm in front of my face and I get the arm bar. So he goes, all right, what can I do? So now he has to create space here by moving in towards me and sucking his elbow to his hip. Boom! Now his elbow. That sound effect was for you, Kyle. Okay, sucks his elbow to his body. Now I'm waiting for the hand to come around my head, but it doesn't have to. He just slips it in here, and there, he's on the shoulder. The other hand's on the shoulder, and he pulls that shoulder off, and he hips away, and he starts, yeah, whoa, tricep. Look, he's got the tricep right there. He extends, bang, 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 bang. Boom. Okay, so in answer to your question there, Harry, if you do it and you do it again and you're hesitating or you're a step behind, you speak to your partner. What's going on? And you may not even be aware that you're a step behind. You know, later on, everyone goes, it's a woulda, shoulda, coulda. It's like that bloke who said to me, no one's got an answer. And I said, well, I'm old, but I might have an answer. He said, what will you do? And I said, well, you do it. We'll see, da, da, da. And later on, he said, yeah, look, you know what? I could have. And that's what I said, look, if you could have, you would have, but you didn't because you couldn't. So quite often, when you think I should have done that, is the perfect time to ask the magic question. You ask your partner, a trusted training partner, you say to them, what could I have done? What should I have done? Where did I go wrong? What do you suggest? And they go, well, you know, you bring your arm in front of my face like that, it's going to get caught every time. So we have to work out a way where you can get your arm through without exposing it. Okay? So you ask those magic questions. What did I do right? And we ask that first because it makes you feel good. You get that little endorphin rush. So I'm rolling with Josh. Josh says to me, what'd you do right? I said, wow, the way you were bringing your hip off the away and getting off the ground was really good. I had to completely adjust everything. Okay, so he knows that he's on the right path. Okay, then he goes, what did I do wrong? Go, well, you know, the way you bring your arm around it, you're exposing your arm too much. What'll I do about it? Okay, well, move your hip, suck your elbow in, and snake the hand through rather than bring it across. Okay, so this whole concept of duality, you know, you train hard and you fight easy. You train easy, you fight hard. It's that simple. And that's a timing thing too. Train hard and fight easy for a tournament. And then as the tournament gets close, so that you can fight hard in the tournament, you train easy building up to it so you don't get any injuries. With any technique, you drill it, you train it, you look for the 80-20. That's what you're doing. You can draw a perfect line down the middle. You have the benefits and the drawbacks, the positives, the negatives, the strongs, the weaks. Okay, then you're 80-20 it. What can I do to make this technique strong? Yes. Well, that's exactly right, Tigray. The big question you ask is, what would I do to beat me? But that's a psychological thing too, because you know your psychological strengths and weaknesses better than anyone. Okay, so you're looking for your weaknesses. What would I do to beat me? Okay, that's it. You know, you've got the dualities of a straight line and a circle, a straight line and an angle. You've got strong Kihon and free style Kumite. You've got the formal and the freestyle of the training. You know, even soul size 3 points of kata training. Waza no kankyu, hino chosei, chikara no kyojaku. Waza no kankyu. So that's the points of power, the strengths and weaknesses, the timing of the technique. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's hard and strong, sometimes it's soft and pliant. Okay, iki no chosei, the breath control. Breath control is breathe in, sometimes breathe out. Breathe deep, breathe shallow. There's really a lot of value in knowing the difference between, I mean, sometimes you just cannot breathe deep. Okay, so sometimes you have to recognize that you have to get oxygen in the lungs, and you got part up here, part here, and part here. We're always taught to do diaphragmatic breathing. Don't use the shoulders, okay? And then in certain positions you can be in, you will be in a position where you just can't do that deep breathing, okay? So what you do is you learn and it's much, you can last a lot longer doing those short breathing than you can going, trying to get the deep breaths when you can't do the deep breaths because your diaphragm is pressured. And that leads to panic. If my diaphragm's pressured and I can't use it, I can't get breath. But you don't need your diaphragm if you use your top of shoulders. So even in breath control, time for deep breathing, time for shallow breathing, time for fast, time for explosive, time for expansion and contraction. And the last one is chikara no kyojaku, time for points of power stress, time to be hard, time to be soft, okay? And then finally, you've got the mental side of things too, where you've got, staying above the line, below the line, and sometimes you've got to be, if you want to stay above the line, you're single-minded, focused about things. But the opposite of that is dissipation. Your mind is dissipated. You're not going to go anywhere, or someone who takes ownership of things. That's what that is. What would I do to beat me? What did I do well? What didn't I do well? What am I going to do about it? That's taking ownership, okay? But the opposite of that, it could probably be blame. There's nothing I can do about it. His technique was just too good. Josh is a killer. His side control is just the best. I'm never going to get out of that. Well, that's not taking ownership, okay? Accountability. Be accountable. Don't deny responsibility. Be accountable for it, okay? And you're either responsible, you take responsibility, or you're reckless about things. And you can weave all of that into your training. Hicks and Gracie spoke of similar breathing methods. Yeah, Hickson's right into yoga. I must admit I've never trained with him. I don't know much about him. But I've seen that video where he does that, but I don't know why he does it. I mean, he does. All I'm doing is I know that when I'm crunched up, in this position, I won't get Josh to do it because the stitches in my back could rip. But when you're in a position where you're curled over like this, you're in this position here, and they're pressuring you down. What it does is it shuts down your diaphragm. And it's very easy to get claustrophobic and give up because you can't breathe well. So at times like that, you think about it. I'll just do that position again because it may not have been very good on the I'm here like this, and I get stacked. Actually, put the glasses down. And so let's just say we're in a situation where Josh is coming past, and then he stacks my leg. He gets that leg right over, bang, and he gets my knee on his shoulder, and then he just takes my knee all the way over. Okay, keep pushing, push, go. Okay, now move off so I don't rip it. So I'm in this, move right away. So I'm in this situation now where Josh has stacked me, he stacked me all the way over here. Whoa, all the way over here like this. And I can hardly even talk because my diaphragm. And imagine if Josh is on top of that, pressuring me down. Your diaphragm's just not going to work. Your ribs are connected to, there's nothing there. So then you start to use the top corners of your lungs. And this is why doing that complete yoga breathing is important, because things like tuberculosis and pneumonia and so on, they often start off in the top corners of your lungs because they're so unused. So by doing the full breath where you breathe down, out, and up, you'll exercise the top parts of your lung as well. So anyway, we'll wind it up there. I just wanted to talk a little bit about those dualities and how important and valuable they are in your training. How important it is to take your training broad, which means look into other styles, look into other systems, look into the weak points of Kyokushin. Like Tigray said, Jesse Enkamp said, send me that link, I'll have a look. I somehow, I'd have to see it to understand exactly what he said in the context, but you know, it's a fair call. For a lot of Kyokushin guys really are scared of head contact. So what do you do to deal with that? What can I do to beat me? I mean, if I'm going into a fight, he's a Kyokushin guy, I'm not going to try and leg kick him to death. I'll move in, take him down, or punch him in the head. Okay. On the other hand, if I'm fighting a wrestler, a grappler, do you think I'm going to let them get their hands on me? That's the theory. Their area of expertise is to do that. I mean, guys win gold medals taking other highly trained wrestlers to the ground. So the chances of us being able to stop them in a wrestling context are very low. But then we have to think about, what do we do about that? Okay, how can we apply our punches and knees and kicks to deal with that? You know, I've grappled like the no holds barred style of MMA fighting with Dan Henderson and Larry Larry Papadopoulos, Dan Henderson and Randy Couture and guys like that. And my objective is I'm going to kick them in the leg, or I'm going to kick them in the head as they come in, and I still end up on my back tapping out from the pressure of the wrestler's bridge and so on. You know, so they're really they know what they're doing. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you get something out of that. Thanks. Yeah, good to see you, Josh. Yeah, you're becoming more popular than me. This is the last time he's ever coming. You're not welcome back here. Okay. I appreciate Josh as well. It's very nice of him to come away from work early and join in, because, as you can imagine, it'd be very difficult to explain some of these techniques without him. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you soon. Lots of
You're
good.
welcome.
Oh, Siri and Alexa had an argument. Can you believe that? I had my phone there, and I've got Alexa upstairs on that thing, and I said, well, if I say Siri, she's going to react because the face is open, but it was face down. I said, hey, Siri, what's the time? See, no reaction. Hey, Siri, what's the time?
It's 16:11.
And she didn't answer. So I said to Alexa, what's the time? And she told me the time. And I went, hey, Siri, she got you. So my two virtual assistants were fighting off. Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. Please make sure you subscribe, Patreon family. I really love that you're so kind to me. I'm going to start to put your names across the screen when I make videos, so that that I can continue to show my gratitude towards everything you do. Thank you, everyone. At some stage, did those logbooks arrive, Fred? I'm not too sure that I asked. Let me know if they arrive. But at some stage too, I've got to have a quick chat to Torbjörn. I'll get in touch with you, Torbjörn. I have something to ask. I need to seek some information from you. But otherwise, everybody, thank you very much. What's Josh? Thanks for coming along. Josh is going to be a trained killer one day. But he's a nice guy, so he's not going to go and kill anyone. Thank you very much.